In the depths of your mind, there lives a stranger, a figure you rarely acknowledge, yet one who walks beside you in every choice, every hesitation, every secret thought you bury. You know it's there. In the moment you feel envy, when anger rises in silence, when desire burns in secret, that figure watches. It is not the mask you show the world. It is the shadow you hide, the one Carl Jung believes carries the truth you fear the most. But what if that shadow is not your enemy? What if the very part of you that you reject is the gateway to becoming whole? Jung dared to ask, what happens if we stop running and turn to face the darkness within? You've probably heard this name before, Carl Jung. You've maybe heard his ideas in fragments, the shadow, the archetypes, the collective unconscious. But here, you won't just hear them. Here, you'll feel them. Before we dive deeper, pause for a moment. If you find yourself drawn into questions like these, if you're ready to explore the parts of the mind most people avoid, then subscribe, turn on the bell, and let this be the first of many journeys we'll take together. He was born in 1875 in a small Swiss village that seemed too quiet to contain the storms of his mind. Carl Jung grew up in a household where shadows whispered louder than words. His father, a pastor, carried silent doubts about faith, while his mother drifted in and out of strange moods, as if she lived halfway in another world. For the young boy, the line between the visible and the invisible was always thin. He would dream of giants and glowing figures, visions that felt more real than the daylight around him. He'd carried notebooks where he'd tried to capture these images, not knowing that one day they would become the very foundation of a new psychology. But Jung's story is not one of easy genius. It is a story of rupture, of friendship and betrayal, of standing face to face with the darkness inside himself. For a time, he walked alongside Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis. Their bond was intense, almost like that of father and son. They believed they were uncovering the secrets of the human soul together. Yet soon, cracks began to appear. Freud believed in the supremacy of sexual drives. Jung felt the human spirit was larger, deeper, full of symbols, myths, and forces that could not be reduced to biology. The tension between them grew until it broke. What followed for Jung was not triumph, but collapse. He entered what many would call a breakdown, though he described it as a confrontation with the unconscious. For years, he was haunted by visions and dreams so vivid they threatened to overwhelm his sanity. He saw rivers of blood flooding across Europe, images that arrived before the First World War erupted. He wrote and painted obsessively, pouring his inner world into what would later be called the Red Book. In those pages, Jung met figures from his own mind, archetypes, guides, demons, shadows. To the outside world, he seemed lost in madness, but Jung believed he was descending into the depths to bring back something humanity had forgotten: the map of the soul. And it was in this crucible of inner chaos that he uncovered perhaps most haunting ideals: the shadow, the part of ourselves we exile, the impulses we deny, the desires we refuse to admit. He realized that the more we push these parts away, the more power they gain over us. The shadow, he said, does not disappear. It waits. It slips into our actions, our judgments, our collective violence. But hidden within it is not only danger, but a strange kind of treasure. For Jung, the shadow was both the poison and the cure. So pause for a moment and ask yourself, what do you hide from others? What do you hide even from yourself? Could it be that what you fear most is the very thing that might set you free?
The shadow is not a monster lurking outside. It is closer, more intimate. It breathes through you in every unguarded moment. Jung described it as the unknown side of the personality, the collection of traits, desires, and impulses we refuse to see in ourselves. You can notice it in the sudden flash of anger you justify later, in the envy that twists inside your chest when someone else succeeds, in the small lies you tell, not to others, but to yourself. Most people believe they are good, civilized, controlled. We wear masks: the polite colleague, the supportive friend, the loyal partner. Yet, beneath the mask, the shadow stirs. Imagine a person who insists they never feel jealousy, but criticizes anyone who shines brighter. Or the one who declares they are honest, yet gossips in whispers the moment backs are turned. These are not accidents. They are the shadow leaking through the cracks. Jung warned that the more we deny the shadow, the stronger it becomes. What you repress will always return, but not in the way you expect. It may come as depression, as sudden rage, as projection onto others. That's why people often see in others the very qualities they most fear in themselves. The man who hates liars is often hiding lies. The woman who despises arrogance may secretly crave recognition. The shadow loves mirrors. It reflects back what we cannot bear to admit. But Jung did not stop there. He saw that the shadow was not only personal, but collective. It does not just live inside individuals. It can seize entire societies. Look at history. The rise of dictators, the outbreaks of mass violence, the scapegoating of minorities, all are shadows erupting on a cultural scale. The hatred we deny in ourselves is unleashed against others. The wars we fight outside are often the wars we refuse to confront within. Jung lived through 2 world wars and recognized in them the dark face of humanity's shadow, violence projected on a global canvas. And yet, he did not see the shadow as pure destruction. In its darkness, he believed, lies the key to growth, because what we repress often contains not just shame, but power, hidden talents, raw energy, creative fire, all pushed away because they didn't fit the image we wanted to show. The person who suppresses their anger may also suppress their strength. The one who hides their ambition may also bury their potential for greatness. The shadow is both the prison and the hidden treasure chest. So Jung asked, what if you dared to face it, not to fight it, not to destroy it, but to integrate it? To admit, yes, this too is me, the liar, the coward, the selfish one. the envious one, to embrace those parts, not as enemies, but as pieces of a whole self. For Jung, wholeness was not about becoming perfect, it was about becoming real.
Pause for a moment. Think of the last time you judged someone harshly. Could it be that in them you were staring at a hidden part of yourself? And if that is true, are you brave enough to look in that mirror again? Jung believed the human mind was more than a personal diary of memories and desires. Beneath the surface, he saw another layer, a vast ocean of images, patterns, and instincts that every human being shares. He called it the collective unconscious. Unlike Freud, who focused on childhood experiences and repressed desires, Jung's vision was bigger. He noticed that across cultures and across time, people dreamed in the same symbols. A child in Switzerland might dream of dragons, just as a child in China might, without ever hearing the same stories. Ancient myths, religious traditions, and even modern films repeat the same characters: the wise old man, the nurturing mother, the trickster, the hero. Jung called them archetypes, primordial images embedded in the psyche, guiding us in ways we barely notice. Think of the stories you grew up with: the hero who must leave home, face danger, and return transformed; the villain who tempts, threatens, and embodies chaos; the mentor who gives wisdom at the crucial moment. These are not just stories. They are blueprints of the human soul. They repeat in every culture because they live inside us, in the unconscious. Look at modern cinema. In Star Wars, Luke Skywalker follows the archetypal journey of the hero, guided by Obi-Wan Kenobi, the wise old man, and tempted by Darth Vader, the shadow. In The Lion King, Simba confronts Scar, his darker reflection, before becoming king. In The Matrix, Neo must awaken to his hidden potential, guided by Morpheus, battling the artificial order of machines, a myth dressed in digital clothes. The settings change, the costumes change, but the archetypes remain. Jung believed this is why stories move us so deeply. They echo what is already within us. A myth is not just entertainment, it is a mirror of our unconscious. When you cry at the end of a movie or feel chills during a certain scene, it is not just because of the acting or the music. It is because something inside you recognizes itself in the story. But Jung also warned, if we fail to recognize these archetypes, they can possess us. A person can become swallowed by the hero archetype, driven by grandiosity and a need to save others while neglecting their own flaws. Another might fall under the power of the victim archetype, always feeling powerless, projecting responsibility onto others. Even nations can be possessed, believing they are the chosen people, the eternal enemy, or the bringers of salvation. Archetypes are powerful precisely because they are unconscious. They can guide or they can control. And here is the most haunting connection. The shadow and the archetypes are not separate. The shadow itself is an archetype, one of the most potent. In every story, the hero faces an enemy. But what Jung discovered is that the true enemy is often an inner one. The dragon is not outside, it is the shadow within. And until the hero confronts that darkness, the story cannot end. So pause and reflect. What story are you living without realizing it? Are you caught in the loop of the hero, always trying to prove yourself? Do you live as the victim, trapped by excuses? Or have you met your own shadow yet, waiting in the dark corner of your dreams?
To Jung, the purpose of life was not perfection, but wholeness. And wholeness could never be reached by ignoring the shadow. Instead, it demanded a confrontation. He called this journey individuation, the process of becoming truly yourself, beyond masks, beyond roles, beyond denial. But facing the shadow is not easy. It begins in discomfort. In the moments when life corners you and forces you to see the parts of yourself you'd rather avoid. A failed relationship that reveals your selfishness. A betrayal that exposes your hidden envy. A dream that unsettles you with images you don't want to admit are yours. Each moment whispers, "This too is you." Most people turn away. They numb themselves with distractions, with work, with endless scrolling, with substances, with noise. But the shadow waits patiently, and the more you run, the more you feel that strange emptiness at night when the room goes quiet and your thoughts grow louder. Jung warned, what you do not make conscious will rule you as fate. The shadow you ignore becomes the destiny you cannot escape. So how do you face it? Jung did not give step-by-step instructions. Instead, he pointed towards attitudes. First, courage, the willingness to look honestly at your flaws without collapsing into shame, to say, yes, I am capable of cruelty, of envy, of deceit. Then compassion, not for the world, but for yourself. Because to integrate the shadow is to accept that you are human, made of light and darkness both. The work continues through awareness. Notice your projections, the qualities you despise in others. Ask, what part of me am I seeing in them? Notice your dreams, the figures that chase you, the faces you fear. Ask, what are they showing me about myself? Notice your slips of the tongue, your impulses, your sudden emotions. They are messages from the shadow, waiting to be heard. But the most transformative step is integration. Instead of trying to kill the shadow, you invite it into dialogue. You write it, you paint it, you let it speak. Jung himself spoke with inner figures during his descent, asking questions, listening to their answers. He treated the psyche not as an enemy to conquer, but as a realm to explore. Through this, he discovered that the shadow holds energy that once embraced can be turned into creativity,
strength, authenticity. Imagine a person who suppresses their anger all their life. It leaks out as passive aggression, as bitterness, as hidden resentment. But if they confront it, accept it, and learn to channel it, they may discover assertiveness, the power to stand up for themselves, the fire to protect what they love. Or consider someone who hides their ambition out of fear of being judged. Their shadow pushes it underground where it festers as jealousy. But once acknowledged, it can fuel achievement, purpose, contribution. The very traits we deny often contain the gold we seek. Jung put it simply, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And here lies the paradox. The shadow is both the wound and the healer. It terrifies us, but it is also the gate. To step through it is to claim the fullness of your being. Pause and ask yourself, what trait do you hide so deeply that even admitting it here feels dangerous? What if that trait, once faced, could give you the power you've been missing?
The shadow is not only personal. It does not live only in your secrets or your hidden desires. Jung believed it moves across entire nations, entire cultures, entire generations. He called it the collective shadow, the darkness that emerges when societies refuse to face what lies beneath. Look at history, and you will see it again and again. In the years before World War II, Jung warned that Germany was falling under the possession of its shadow. Rage, humiliation, and resentment buried after World War I began to rise, seeking an outlet. And when a people refuse to own their shadow, they project it outward. They seek enemies, scapegoats, villains to carry what they cannot bear. What followed was one of the darkest chapters in human history. But this is not only about the past. Every generation faces the temptation to deny its shadow. We see it in the rise of polarized politics, where groups demonize each other instead of facing their own flaws. We see it in the hatred of minorities, in the violence born from fear of difference. We see it in wars fought under banners of purity, righteousness, salvation. Again and again, humanity projects its denied darkness onto others, turning them into monsters. Jung's insight was chilling. The things we hate most in the enemy are often the very things we cannot admit in ourselves. A nation that prides itself on freedom may secretly fear its own desire for control. A culture that worships purity may be repressing its own corruption. The louder the moral outrage, the deeper the shadow often hides. But Jung also saw hope. Just as the individual can grow by facing their shadow, so too can societies. Art, literature, philosophy, and even honest dialogue can serve as mirrors, forcing a culture to see itself more clearly. The shadow can be expressed, transformed, integrated, not only in one life, but in the life of humanity. Consider how the horrors of the 20th century gave rise to new visions of human rights, democracy, global cooperation. The shadow revealed itself through destruction, But from that darkness came the seeds of a new consciousness. Jung believed history itself is an individuation process, a slow, painful journey toward collective wholeness. But the question remains, are we willing to learn, or are we condemned to repeat the same cycle, generation after generation? Pause for a moment. Look at the world today. Wars rage, ideologies collide, technology spreads faster than wisdom. Do you see humanity's shadow in these events? Do you see it in the way hatred grows louder, while compassion grows quieter? And more importantly, can you see your own reflection in it?
Imagine a wise narrator speaking late at night, guiding someone through their deepest thoughts. Imagine a wise narrator speaking late at night, guiding someone through their deepest thoughts. Not every shadow destroys. Some shadows create. Jung noticed that the same energies we repress in fear can erupt as art, music, poetry, invention. The shadow is raw, untamed, overflowing with images and emotions too wild for the daylight self. But when we dare to approach it, when we channel it, something extraordinary is born. Think of the greatest works of literature. Dostoevsky's novels, filled with murderers, sinners, broken souls wrestling with guilt and redemption. Think of Van Gogh, pouring his inner torment into colors that still blaze across canvases more than a century later. Think of musicians whose darkest nights birthed songs that heal strangers around the world. These are not accidents. They are shadows made visible. The artist, Jung believed, often stands closest to the unconscious. They serve as translators, bringing images from the hidden depths into a form the world can feel. But this gift carries a danger. The same energies that fuel creativity can also consume. The shadow does not care whether its energy is used to build or to destroy. That choice belongs to us. Even in ordinary lives, this truth appears. A person who denies their anger may find it leaking into passive bitterness, poisoning relationships. But if they face it, channel it, they might become a leader, a voice for justice, a protector of the weak. A person who hides their longing for recognition may live in quiet envy, but if they accept it, they might discover the courage to share their talents, to inspire others. The difference lies not in the shadow itself, but in how we meet it. Jung saw creativity as one of the most powerful paths to integration. When you write your fears, when you paint your nightmares, when you give form to what you cannot say aloud, you take back power. The shadow becomes not a demon chasing you, but a collaborator offering you energy you never knew you had. Pause and think. What is the story, the song, the idea, the dream that haunts you at night? Could it be the voice of your shadow asking to be heard? And if you dared to listen, what masterpiece might it give birth to?
In 1913, Carl Jung stood at the edge of a private abyss. His break with Freud had left him isolated, ridiculed, uncertain. But the greater rupture was inside him. Night after night, he was visited by visions so overwhelming he feared for his sanity. He saw Europe drowning in rivers of blood. He dreamed of oceans swallowing cities,
of serpents and gods rising from the deep. These were not fleeting fantasies. They came with the force of reality. And 3 months later, World War I erupted, blood spilling exactly as he had seen. But instead of fleeing these visions, Jung chose something few would dare. He surrendered to them. He entered what he later called his confrontation with the unconscious. Every day, after his clinical work, he would retreat into solitude, let the images rise, and record them. He spoke to figures in his mind as if they were alive. He painted what he saw with haunting precision. What began as madness became a ritual. For years, he filled a massive crimson volume with these experiences. This became the Red Book. Within its pages walked strange guides. Philemon, an old wise man with wings. Salome, a blind prophetess. Serpents coiling around suns. Landscapes of fire and silence. To the outside world, Jung appeared withdrawn, eccentric. But in those pages, he was living a myth, a journey into the underworld of the psyche, meeting the archetypes face to face. This was not art for the public. Jung locked the book away, fearing it would brand him insane. Yet he also knew it was the wellspring of his greatest ideas. The shadow, the archetypes, the collective unconscious, individuation, all were born from his descent. The visions nearly broke him, but they also remade him. Jung once said, "I had to accept that what I had previously called my life had been lived by someone else." He realized that without facing his inner world, he had been a stranger to himself. Through the Red Book, he began to claim that inner stranger, not to master it, but to walk with it. Imagine it, the man who would one day influence psychology, literature, art, and even modern spirituality, alone in a study, night after night, staring into the dark mirror of his own soul, daring to write down the unspeakable. This was not theory, it was initiation. And maybe that's why his words still echo today. Because Jung did not simply study the shadow, he lived it, he bled with it, he gave it shape. Pause for a moment. What would happen if you wrote down the images of your own dreams, your fears, your darkest thoughts, not to banish them, but to see them? What would you discover if you had the courage to face your private Red Book?
You might be wondering, what does any of this mean for me? Jung lived a century ago. He wrote in thick books, painted visions most people could never imagine. But the shadow is not locked in history. It is here. It is alive in you, in me, in everyone who dares to look beneath the mask. Think of your daily life. You wake up, check your phone, scroll past faces smiling brighter than yours. A flicker of envy stirs, but you push it away. You walk into work, act polite while irritation simmers under the surface. You reassure a friend, but secretly resent their success. Each of these moments is the shadow, speaking in whispers. The question is, will you listen? Jung would tell you, the shadow you refuse to face will rule your life. The envy becomes bitterness.
The suppressed anger leaks into cruelty. The denied desire becomes addiction. But the opposite is also true. The shadow you face can free you. That envy can show you what you truly value. That anger can reveal where your boundaries must be. That desire can guide you toward the life you secretly long for. Facing the shadow is not about self-condemnation. It is not about labeling yourself as broken, wicked, unworthy. Jung's vision was far more radical. It is about becoming whole. To say, yes, I contain contradictions. I am both light and dark. I am both generous and selfish, both courageous and afraid. And in that admission lies liberation. You do not need to paint visions in a red book to begin this work. You can start tonight when you close your eyes. Ask yourself, what am I avoiding? Who in my life triggers me most, and what part of me do they reflect? What dream keeps returning, demanding my attention? Each answer is a thread leading you deeper into the labyrinth of your own psyche. And here is the paradox. The shadow is not an obstacle to your journey. It is the journey. The very thing you resist is the very thing that will shape you. Without darkness, light has no depth. Without the shadow, the self is only a mask. Pause here. Ask yourself, gently, without judgment, what is the shadow asking you to see today? So here we stand at the edge of Jung's vision. A man who descended into his own darkness and returned with a message for the world. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It is the mirror you avoid, yet the mirror that holds the face of your truest self. Every time you deny what you feel, you give it power. Every time you bury a desire, it waits in silence. But when you dare to face it, when you whisper, yes, this too is me, you step into wholeness. Jung believed this was the secret path of human life, not to escape the darkness, but to walk with it. And maybe this is why his ideas still haunt us more than 100 years later. Because the battle he described is not locked in books or in therapy rooms or in history. It is happening now, in you, in the choices you make when no one is watching, in the truths you admit only in dreams, in the stranger you carry inside, the one who has been waiting patiently for you to turn and see them. So pause, close your eyes, feel the weight of your own shadow, and instead of running, try something different. Say hello, ask what it wants to show you, for in that moment, you may discover not a demon, but a forgotten piece of your soul. And if this journey through Jung's world stirred something in you, if you felt the whisper of your own shadow as you listened, then stay with us. Subscribe, ring the bell, because here we dive into the depths few dare to enter, and together we rise. MystiWave, dive deep, rise transformed.